How can we use practice to deal with change? How do we become either more accepting of it, and to what extent do we affect it?
This whole universe is in constant motion at every level. So always there's change. So what's our job? If you see it as your job to affect social change for the good, not just John Coltrane's idea, but also yours, then where do you start?
Right here, right now.
Show me. Only that?
How can I help you? How are you? Yeah.
I don't need any help right now, but thank you. I've got some tea, but I'll keep it in mind. But to do anything that is of any service, if we just start with an idea of what I want or don't want, or how I think it should be or shouldn't be, then invariably we make a mess. We just make more suffering. At least that's been my experience. If we start with the truth, with really trying to perceive things exactly as they are, then what? Then what appears in relation to your experience? What's my relationship to it, and how do I function? What kind of function appears? But it's not trying to figure it out so much. It's real, as Sungjun talked about, there's this responsiveness, that can appear. So, you see someone whose car stalled right in front of you, and what do? You can honk the horn and you can rage and, God damn it, get out of my way, Or you can jump out and help push it off the street and then carry on. But what appears, and who's doing that? Is it... I like this, that Sungjun used this image of this eye. We carry this idea of ourselves so strongly and so tightly. We really think that there's an eye that's quite solid and quite concrete, and it doesn't change. Right? We think that. I don't know. I certainly am familiar with that, thinking that there's this I that's always been Nancy and will always be, and I'm not sure what will happen when this body dies, but certainly this Nancy exists and is real and is something to be presented and defended, and if someone hurts my feelings, then I need to be angry or hurt. Or I got rear-ended on my way up here at a stoplight in Cumberland, just at the beginning of my trip, and boy, there was a good opportunity to get irritated. Oh boy, probably gonna have whiplash, and they're gonna make me late, and the traffic I'm gonna hit the worst of the commuter traffic. And now there's this new thing, the policeman, we called the police, and he did the crash report, and then he gave me this card, and he said, so, your insurance company might be able to get the crash report, but it might not. And if it can't, well, you can go on this website and you can get it it costs $10 or $15, or you can come to the police station and we can give it to you. And it's like, really? How do we deal with that, you know? And I found myself, and this woman, this poor woman, you know, she had 2 kids strapped in their car seats in the back seat. This young woman, she was just trying to, she probably saw the light change up ahead, but the car in front of me hadn't started yet. Bam! You know, and part of me really wanted to just be pissed off, you know. And part of me was just, oh, really? But what was wonderful was that by the end, you know, the policeman came in, he did his thing, and then we waved to each other. And smiled and went about our way, you know, and it was sort of, it was part of our journey. Daishan used to say, our founding teacher used to say, if you bump into someone on the street, you've probably done that for 500 lifetimes. You know? Well, what about? There's some karma. So bye, you know. Just take care of, do what needs to be done, and then move along. I'm planning to go on a long solo retreat this summer and fall after Founders Day weekend, and I'm going to cut it a little shorter than 100 days because I want to be back for election day. You know, I looked at the calendar, I counted off the weeks. There was just no way I could do 100 days and be back for election day. I said, okay, well, I'm going to come back for election day. Yeah, so I don't know. It's things like that. You know, it's what's my job? What's your job? How do we play it out, moment to moment, day to day? It's not special. You know, we talk about saving all beings from suffering. That's our direction. That's our direction. But the idea of it, we just drop that and come to this moment. This moment. You know, how is it just now? Or, what is this I? So in June, what am I? Whatever, you know, we're human beings and we have amazing questions about our condition as a human being, yeah? If we really look into it, what is this I? What is this life and death business? What's my job as a human being? How can I help this world? How can I help my loved ones? How can I help my community? Why am I pissed off all the time? Is that a familiar one? You know, what about this non-stop wanting? Never enough. Never enough. So the beautiful thing is, for me, the amazing thing about this practice, and I loved how you talked about Shariputra. You know, he just earnestly asked. He didn't hold some idea of that he was stupid. I'm no good because I ask these stupid questions, you know, bam, bam. He just asked them. And that's the beauty of our condition as human beings. It gives us these, it gives us the actual experience of not knowing. Right? We really don't know. We really don't. And what a wonderful place to start, and to return to. How is it just now? I don't know about you, but I think I and I think most of us were so often, Sunjun talked about this in the instruction, we are here, we're there, we're back in things that happened, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago. And we're imagining things that might happen tomorrow or in 10 years and pretty much, or we imagine people's intentions. This is a good one. Something happens, someone does something, and they did that to get to me. More often than not, when I think I know someone's intentions, I'm wrong. And I don't know about you, but for me, the people who have been, where I have felt the most non-judged, accepted, relaxed as a human being are the people who are just present with me as I am. And, oh, okay, she's like that. We can do that for each other. We can simply be present for and with each other. And by doing this practice of inquiry, of bringing this asking to this moment of our life, how is it just now? What's my job just now? I'm going to keep going. If anybody has a question, just ask. There's a poem in here that I really like. It's called Original Face, poem by Zen Master Seung San, our founding teacher. Your true self is always shining and free. Human beings make something and enter the ocean of suffering. Only without thinking can you return to your true self. The high mountain is always blue, white clouds coming and going. Your true self is always shining and free. And this high mountain is always blue, white clouds coming and going. It's like Sanjun's sky. White clouds coming and going, or gray thunder clouds. Sometimes it's like that. Coming, going, coming, going. But this true self, what is it? This that we share with this universe, this our Buddha nature, this any moment of not making separation. As Sunjun said, this is not something out of the ordinary. Every single one of us experiences throughout every single day of our life moments of completely doing what we're doing. Not anything special. But they come so quickly and go so quickly that we don't always notice. In sports, people talk about the zone because there can be these periods that are a little bit extended, and we notice them. Or where we're just completely involved, or art, or music, or being with a loved one, or being with a kid, or we all, being out in nature, doing some activity where we're completely involved in it. This is not remarkable, and yet it is. Because in those moments of completely doing what we're doing, we're not making any separation. And it's already clear that in that moment that we and this universe are one, are not separate. So we practice that. We practice this being in this moment. And for me, this practice of Zen is incredible. It's such a wonderfully portable practice, because it's not just sitting and following our breath and seeing the floor and doing a retreat, although this is very helpful to do this. But it's also walking out tonight to our bus or the red line or our car, or just walking and doing what we're doing, just doing it. This moment, unfolding moment to moment to moment. Not special.
I guess I have two questions. What you just were saying about just doing what you're doing, and when I'm doing something but I'm not completely just doing what I'm doing, I usually notice of what else I'm doing is, I'm in my head. I'm thinking about being somewhere else, or doing something else, or just being kind of in some kind of muddled chaos. I might be walking up the street and I'm just fine walking up the street, but I'm not completely doing it. And I think it took me a while to understand that that's kind of what you mean when you say just do what you're doing and not be in all this, this other stuff that you might be envisioning in your head, or planning something else or whatever. And maybe just explain something instead of put out a question. But I think I'm talking about that because that was something that was very difficult for me to understand what that meant, just like doing what you're doing. And the other question that I had, it slipped now, but it was something that came up just before I asked you, just before you interrupted yourself to answer my question. So if it comes back, I'll ask it.
What you described, like walking down the street, it also happens on the cushion. Yeah, It happens everywhere. And that's also part of the truth. In that moment, it's not like, oh, that's bad. The thinking while I'm walking down the street. Or cut through the thinking, just do it, and that's good. But what minimizes harm in this world, what minimizes suffering, and kind of maximizes being helpful, being of service, being a friend. I like that. Those legs. So, I don't know, in my experience, the more when there's all this thinking that's going on, and there's here and there, and it's really hard to be present for the person in front of me, the job at hand. And so there's more. There's just more suffering. So for me, the experience has been that being sort of trying to hone the attention back to this moment seems to be helpful.
Where am I?
What?
Where am I?
I ask you.
Don't know. Cambridge Zen Center.
More meticulous.
Earth.
I was headed in the other direction. What do you see just now?
Reflection.
On what?
Wood floor.
Yeah. Hey, you're in the Dharma room at the Cambridge Zen Center. In the Dharma talk, yeah? Where's the problem?
Don't know.
It's good. It's good. You know, sometimes we have these times in our lives where that don't know gets really strong. Like this house of cards that we make can fall to pieces. So then, what do you see just now? What do you hear just now? What do you smell, taste, touch, perceive? How is it just now? And let that don't know simply function. Thank you.
Thank you.
So strong don't know. Thank you.
Daishan Sim said about there's a finite amount of matter that's changing shape and form. So your idea of Nancy, my idea of Nancy, your idea of Paul, my idea of Paul, same or different? Where? Can you elaborate on this one? I mean, it holds water.
I ask you. Only that.
How are you?
Yeah. You know, this hit. Some of you will know about this. I think a lot of you here do. Not you. Not you. This is a tool that Daishan gave us, our founding teacher. Over the centuries, many Zen masters have used different tools to help their students wake up. One was famous for taking his Zen stick and kaboom! Hitting his students, wake up! It's a wake-up stick. Another was famous for the Zen belly shove. Cut through thinking. Gucci Zen master, any kind of question. You don't hold up one finger. Daishan Sanim, when he came to this country, he had us hit the floor. In the interview setting, he called this first course our usual habit. In come-on interview, when you do a one-on-one with a teacher, there are lots of questions. And our usual habit when we hear a question is to think. And that's how we're trained. And so he called this first course because he would ask a question, and instead of going into thinking, we hit the floor. Now this hit is actually, it's so important. But we can get kind of lackadaisical, and then we think more important is what comes after that. But the thing about this hit is that it actually, anytime we do anything completely, and that's what this is doing something with our full attention. This hit isn't important. The stick isn't important. The yell isn't important. The one finger isn't important. It's the giving our all to this moment. Anytime we do that, anytime we do anything completely, it returns us to before thinking. It returns us to our true nature, to our true self. So this, if we just do it because it's the form we're supposed to, then it's dead. And it doesn't work for us. It doesn't help us. Then second course is how do we function from before thinking, from doing what we're doing completely. Not my idea, but actually what appears from before thinking, from doing something completely, from don't know. That's so fundamental to what we're cultivating, what we're really practicing is what? How is it just now? What? And let this don't know function. Building that trust in how this process is quite a process. One of the metaphors we use for this hit is the clear button on a calculator. A lot of you have heard this, but I'm going to go over it again. 1 plus 2 equals, then 3 appears on the screen. If we don't press the clear button and try and do another calculation, it's apt to be inaccurate. Although not on all calculators. It's interesting. I was foiled by that. I tested it on one of my calculators. And, wait a minute! It cleared on its own. That's the Buddha. But that's kind of the metaphor of this hit. Is like pressing the clear button. It's like zeroing the scales. Let's start fresh. We can carry all kinds of baggage into a situation. We can carry preconceptions. We can carry, And how do we just start fresh? Now, you can't leave here and go around, hitting the floor.
You could.
You could. And some people get into that and do, but they're, family, colleagues, We get a lot of askance looks. So how do we find a way of hitting? How do we find a way of pushing that clear button in our life, in our daily life, in our regular life? Bobby, our school Zen master, I remember her saying once that she used to contract her abdominal muscles, as a sort of internal hit. Me, there's some phrases that I like. What am I doing just now? And do it. Or how is it just now? And do it to myself, What? Just what? But everyone here we can find our way of bringing this into our life. It's a huge gift to our family and our co-workers and our community to simply return to this moment, be able to not hold grudges, to learn to let those go, let go. Don't have to ignore anything, but we can. This, what Sun Ju did, is holding this eye. We can do this. And then there's availability. That look, there are a couple hands open and available to do something, to be helpful. There's not this tightness that we're all familiar with, when we tighten up around something, or our fears. So I encourage an aliveness to this, Let's see what comes from doing what we're doing completely. Is it time? Any last question? Was that a question?
That was a,
So, is it just doing what we're doing at the right moment, at the present, or is it doing the right thing?
Good! We all the time get questions like that, whether we give them to ourselves or the world gives them to us, these kind of false choices, We separate, whether it's political separation, polarization, or all the good, bad, right, wrong, up, down that we make all the time. Human beings make something, and suffering appears, So, if you don't know, then that's the truth. How wonderful. We don't have to fool with that. If we don't know, then, okay. Then just don't know. But we can see for ourselves if there's some a restriction, if the questions that are there are limited, if there's something false in there. That's not even the word I want, but if it's not complete enough.
So, what if you know that you're not looking at the right question, but looking for all possible distractions?
Looking for what?
Distractions, and being totally in the moment, in the distractions, but not where you think you should be, in the sense that these are just distractions, keeping you away from something that makes you, that you really don't know. But you're still in the moment.
Yeah, so I ask you.
And I don't know.
And then keep that mind until it becomes clear. Don't forget direction though. You know, how to be helpful in this world, and that includes all sentient beings, including ourselves. If we're in the middle of something destructive, then how do we help the situation? You know, and not increase the pain and suffering